Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Back on the Side Leadership After Transition. It's been months since I've been here. So now I was going to start last week and kind of had some technical difficulties. And well, here I am today, and it's a great situation to be back. It's nice to be back, and better to be back with a great guest than be back with no guest, right? Because no one wants to hear me talk forever about anything randomly, right? So Eric Horton, I've been talking to him on and off for about a year. An amazing man. I really like what he's doing, and I think the one of the best things about what I'm doing is I get to see people as they grow and they do different things. And some people are doing things greatly and quietly, and some people are doing things greatly loudly. And the groups and networking places that I'm at, I see this man's name and I see these emails and I see the information, and he's doing it, in my opinion, loudly. And I love that because he's getting information out to the highest realms of the transition veteran, and now we want to get him get it out to everybody, right? So today I'm going to bring him on because I think I talk to the lower levels of the transition place. I like to talk to everybody, but here we go. I'm going to bring to you Mr. Gordon. How you doing today, boss man?
Doing great, man. Thank you, Jeff. It's been a good ride, man, and I appreciate even circling back on it. Yeah, it has been about a year now. We've been chatting, so hey, we're doing good things.
That's it. So do me a favor real quick. So I'm down in Tampa. It's nice. The weather's beautiful. Mid 80s, high 80s, but humid. Tell everybody where you're coming from.
So I'm in Clarksville, Tennessee, which is about right smack between Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and Nashville, Tennessee. And so
Right.
Tennessee, I became.
From what I understand, I've been there a few times, but I know if you put one foot in and you put one foot out, you can be on both sides of the area as quick as you can be, like Tennessee and Kentucky, like
Absolutely,
that. Right?
absolutely.
Awesome, good deal. So, Army veteran, transition. I kind of want to hear your story real quick. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your Army career so everybody can kind of understand where you came from and what you're doing.
Sure. So yeah, we were having a conversation a little bit earlier about it. I joined the Army February 1st, 1990. My first enlistment was in 11 Bravo for 6 years, where I got great mentorship from a platoon sergeant. Said I needed to find a different job. Otherwise, I would be, gate guard at, when I retire. And so I reclassed into logistics, 92 Yankee. And then I stayed there all the way up until 2016. Great opportunity, great career. Just I wouldn't change anything from it.
Outstanding. So you're 92 Yankee. For folks that don't know, supply guy, right? So someone like me, I think the two people that you really needed in the military, right, were your supply guy and your admin guy, and or yeah, whichever it is, because the admin folks always knew the right documents to put things together to get things right, and you guys always knew exactly where I could get the things that I needed to make something happen, right?
Absolutely.
That's good. So you retired from the Army in what year? 2016.
2016, yeah.
And when you got out, as you were getting ready to get out, what you realized was, man, there's $1 million to make, and you signed a contract immediately to make millions of dollars, because that's what happens when you get out of the Army, right? You make millions of dollars.
Right. Yeah. So,
Sure.
in that regard, my immediate transition was pretty seamless. I had 138 days of terminal leave. I figured I've been doing logistics for 20 years, having the degrees and all the civilian credentials. Was the first graduating class of Hire Heroes at Fort Campbell, and took the uniform off May 26th. 2016, went to work immediately 1 June running Dell's Logistics out of Nashville. Took 138 days of terminal leave, and I thought I was living the dream, right? It wasn't until I took that first job that I understood that transition piece was about to begin. There was a whole world of things that I didn't understand, and you just kind of started developing some of the lessons that's where I've made my passion to try to say is, you have no idea what you're getting into when you transition, and it can be easy. And it was easy for me, but the real pain didn't take place until after I took the first job. And then what does that transition look like? And there's so much that's taken place since then. So, yeah.
Right. Well, I want to say hello to Danny, my buddy of mine, Danny Fury came on. What's up, Danny? Nice to see you out here. Hey, so what I find to be interesting is that every transition is different, right? And I really have enjoyed, if you will, the last year. I've watched different podcasts pop up about transition, and I love it. I because it means that someone cares, right? So I don't look
Right.
at that stuff as competition. I look at it as information flowing because my transition was very much similar to yours as far as it was kind of seamless. Took some time.
Right.
I had prepared a little bit as far as what I wanted to be when I grew up was a little different, right? But I got a job immediately. I was not like out there just getting banging my head against the wall. But because there's so many variables that exist in the transition, I think that you said it best, which is important, is 138 days of your transition leave to kind of get your head straight. How long did you prepare before the 138 days to kind of exit the military? It wasn't a surprise to you, so you were able to kind of do some things to get situated, right?
Well, so and that's where once again, being a logistician, I had an A plan, a B plan, and a C plan.
Mm.
I started planning 2 years out, so I actually had, my battle staff room, two full school year calendars, and 24 months out, I'd already started planning for the transition. And so, before the closer that I got to my date, what was an A plan, B plan, and C plan turned into an A.2, A.3, B.2, B.3. And I remember, so my father-in-law retired out of the Navy 30 years. He retired in 2014. And he had asked me, he said, "Hey, what's your plan?" And I had said, I told him my plan, and he said, "Great, that just gives you something to deviate from." And
Right.
uh, and I was like, "You don't know what you're talking about. I got this straight. We're doing X, Y, Z."
Mm.
And even in that planning process, we had a plan for 2 years, and literally 6 months before the end of my plan, 180 degrees was the exact opposite. All because I didn't even include my wife's opinion of what we should do.
Right.
And so, literally 6 months before we were supposed to, so April of 2016, we literally made the decision that we were staying in Clarksville instead of going back to our home in Iowa. And
Wow.
that was not a part of the plan, but I never even listened to what my wife was saying. So,
Yeah.
that's when the transition, kind of began where it was, even though it started off on a great trajectory and great, pathway, it ended, grossly, unprepared for what was getting ready to take place.
I,
So,
I love the idea of the multiple plans, the A, B, C, Ds, A, E, E's, F, Fs, because at the end of the day,
yeah,
all this stuff sounds good, right? Also, no plan survives first contact. But you know what's really interesting is when you bring the spouse into the conversation, and whether it's early or late, it's just really interesting because during your time in the military, I've always found it to be interesting anyway, that you can have a conversation with your spouse of where you're going to go next. But it's nice to have that conversation, but you don't always have control of that. So I can
no,
have that conversation and say, hey, where would you like to go? Would you like to stay here? Would you like to go there? But at the end of the day, when the Army, Marines, Air Force, Navy sends you, you go. You do what you do, right? As long as you're going to stay in, you're going to go and do what they do. So the conversation, although it seems okay to have, really it's out your hands a lot of times, right? But that transition is
absolutely.
actually an opportunity for you to turn and say, we have a choice here, you and I, to either
Yeah,
stay where we're at or move or go or do, whatever it may be. And I think it's a huge thing that ends have some significant pull. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Which adds stress to the transition itself that makes it become a lot more overwhelming.
absolutely.
I don't want to say it needs to be. It needs to be overwhelming. I mean,
Yeah,
it's going to be overwhelming. But having that conversation kind of opens and eases that a little bit if you can do it early on in the game, right?
absolutely.
Outstanding. So as you transition, so you made your way out and you got yourself into your first job upon transition, and then what happened? Kind of talk to me what things transpired that made you get or helped you get to where you are today.
Well, so about, I think for me, so the first thing that we did during Hire Heroes that they said was go chase the money, right? So I chased the money because of the advice, not to say that there's anything wrong with it, it was just that they said that, hey, if you're doing as much time in the military as you did, your earning potential is greatly reduced the older you get. Now, I was 46 when I retired. 26 years in the military. So, a 46-year-old entering the workforce, I got it. 20 years of experience in the military. All these things, right? So you're still over 40. When you're competing against 20-year-olds from Nashville, Vanderbilt, Lipscomb University, you're competing against a pool of probably workers that are going to enter the workforce and work twice as hard as you for half as much as you. So it puts you at a little bit of a disadvantage. So they said, chase the money, your earning power. So I did that. And it wasn't until I got there that I really understood one of the basic fundamentals. Nobody's going to pay you six figures and not own you for six figures.
Mm.
That was number one. And number two was, in the corporate world, I don't care what you did for me yesterday. What are you doing for me today? And that was a lot. There's a lot of little different nuggets that I picked up through that whole year and 4 months that were painful, that were really valuable lessons that I use today to kind of share with people. A lot of the misunderstandings of what we think the outside world is like. And so, about 3-4 months into that was when I first seen the first challenges. We hired a person that was a 30-year command sergeant major that used to be a box sergeant major. And after 28 days, he threw his badge down and said he quit and the first thing was, wow, you're only managing 34 people. You're telling me you don't know how to manage 34 people. And the response was, I can manage 34 people, but those aren't committed people. And that's when I was like, that was the very first light bulb that came on in the transition and said, wow, we don't understand a culture. Managing 1,200 people in the Army is not the same as managing 1,200 people in the civilian world.
Right.
And that's a nationwide occurrence. This is the first time ever in U.S. history where you have actually 5 generations in the workforce at the same time. And so at that workforce, you can have a 70-year-old that's still working, and you can have an 18-year-old that's not even going to college, that's just out of high school. Yeah. So how do you work with 5 generations in a workforce as a retired senior leader from the military, trying to tell them to go to work, when they need, so some of the basics that didn't come to light until he said, wow, they're not committed. I can deal with committed, military people, but I can't deal with the uncommitted workforce.
Yeah.
And so that was the first light bulb. Second light bulb that came on later on was that we had hired a deputy G4 at one time, and he didn't even last the first week. And so that was my second light bulb. It's like, man, there is something here. I just don't know what it is yet. And right around that 6-month timeline was when things started getting really, where I started learning about the corporate culture. I don't care what you did yesterday. It's what you're doing today. I don't care about your history from the past 6 months. It's what you're doing today on. Mm-hmm. And if you don't get it right within the next week or 2 months, then we're going to find somebody else that can and walk you to the door. And so that was kind of started the snowball, man, of there's something that we're missing that we don't get. And while I thought I had planned meticulously and it was seamless transition, what looked good on paper wasn't good inside. Once the dust settled and everything, that's where I was like, man, there's something out here. I just need to figure it out. We don't understand this. Yeah. And it just kind of grew from there, man, until finally, after about 16 months in, I said, hey, I'm going to, I got to give my 30-day notice. And they were like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'll be okay. Well, I'll figure it out. It's not the end of the world. And, I was kind of even blown away by the fact that I would give them 30-day notice, but, if it hadn't happened, looking back on it now, and I talked with a good friend of mine that was there, that's now been a good friend after I got out. And he said, if it hadn't happened, would you be where you're at today to learn and share what you learned? And I was like, I didn't look at it from that perspective. So yeah, I'm thankful for that opportunity to have grown. You never learn during the good times. You're only learning during the bad times.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man, I wouldn't be here today if it hadn't been for that.
So what's awesome is when I first met you, I saw you on LinkedIn. You were doing some things on LinkedIn, which I typically follow folks on LinkedIn. I look and see what's happening in the transition space on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn has become a great tool anyway from a business or job hunting perspective, but the military is trying to push people to LinkedIn, right? There are a lot of bases are talking going to LinkedIn, which is fine. They should, right? The one thing that caught my attention with you is that you'd post some things and it was of value. Now, there's a lot of folks that look, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't post much value. I realize that. No, I do here and there, but what I'm saying is that every post I would see with you, I could look at it and it would be something that I could look at and say, man, I want to share this with somebody. Man, I want to share this with somebody. Hey, I want to copy this. I want to steal it. I'm just kidding. But it was good information.
It's free.
It was beneficial, right? And then I looked, and what really caught my attention was there were transition hacks. Like it was, I think, and don't get me wrong, I looked at your LinkedIn profile earlier, yesterday, but I just got to remember if it's part of your title. I think it's your name, Eric Horton, and transition hacker is actually your title, not just your summary and all that stuff, but it's right there, right?
Right.
And it's great because the thing is, it's a good catch thing, and people like to have a conversation about what is. So, by the way, anybody that's watching right now, look them up, Eric Horton, transition hacker. I mean, that's it. Go to LinkedIn and find them because it's the information that you provide is amazing. Now I'm going to tell you why I like your information, and I told you earlier. I'm going to tell everybody else because it helps manage your expectations. It gives real
Right.
transferable stuff that makes you think of like a dollar amount, but actually, what are you doing in the military and how does it transfer over to the civilian workforce? You've given people the opportunity to look at and say, from my understanding, that's what it is. So I should
Right.
understand a little bit more as opposed to my buddy who may be the same rank as me or one below or whatever, happens to get a job that pays an excessive amount of money because variables exist, timing is everything, all these things that happen. Should that be the expectation or should that be the norm? And those
Right.
and you bring that to light, and you do that in a way which you have the ears and the eyes of a lot of folks, officers enlisted, all branches of service. It's not just circulating on LinkedIn, but it's circulating in different email networks in which a lot of folks are part of, and some that aren't, but it's there, and I'm really
Wow.
impressed. So, kind of tell me how the transition hacker kind of evolved. What is
Well, so I'm a lifelong learner. I love reading and I love trying to learn as much as possible, right? But I also try to look at as from a perspective of, there has to be a simpler way of doing things. You can't always do things just because for the sake of doing things because that's how it's been done. And so I've always been a big fan of of life hacks, right? And so I thought if I change this around and say there's transition hacks out there that we just don't know about that can simplify some of the processes, then that's going to be the thing. And so for me, I thought, man, instead of life hack, why not transition hack? And so I put that out there with it because the little bits that I put out are just something as simple as possible to change your perspective on how you look at something, on how it was in the military, because it's more or less the exception rather than the norm that we retire as senior leaders and get these six-figure jobs, right? That's not the norm, especially if you're in an area like Fort Campbell, Kentucky, right? And so I use that as a means to kind of help that little twist, that little hack that says, this is what you were while you're in the military. This is what your pay is going to look like outside of the military because of the area or the region that you're in. That's not to say that you can't find an anomaly. It just means that the norm is something that you have to find that little hack for. And so that's kind of how it took place, man. I'm trying to simplify the way that we see something so that we don't have 10 months of unemployment with a soldier because he didn't understand it before. And so if I can break it down into the simplest terms as your pay scale
that?
or what you made while you're in and just kind of tweak it and say that's a hack for the day, then if it simplifies it for you and you're successful and you're not unemployed, then it works.
And how often do you throw out some hacks? Do you do it weekly? Is it a daily? What are you? What is your schedule to throw all those?
Well, so I was doing them monthly. I was trying to do these little hacks monthly. In December, I took a new role. And so in December, the Department of Labor awarded us a grant, a $7.7 million grant that covers Tennessee and Kentucky now. And so that grant, when I, took the promotion, it obviously created a little bit more responsibility now, whereas it was just one of me before managing a career skills program. Now there's 11 of me, and I'm managing 2 states and $7.7 million grant. But now I'm trying to find back and get back on my rhythm
Yeah.
of trying to post some things,
Yeah.
and that's a work in progress. I'm just trying to find the right avenue now to kind of get a good rhythm. I've got a different thing that I'm getting ready to do now that's going to be kind of similar to what other people are doing now. The video piece is the same way, and I've got a great idea, and I'm going to start doing it shortly. But I'm still going to start trying to do it right around monthly or bi-weekly at least. So I'll do a video monthly and then a bi-weekly post.
Good. Well, make sure what I'd like you to do, and I'm going to invite you to do so. So I'm not sure how active you're on Facebook, so I want you to come into my group, the On the Other Side group, share whatever you do, share your videos, share your information. You can share it. And look, I'm like I told everybody, this is not a competition for me. If we're sharing information, people are getting smarter, and I'm not the smartest guy in the room ever. So I want more people to come in and bring that information. So share it. I'll share it, and I'll put it out as much as I can because I do find value in the things in which you say. I'll tell you the one thing I do like is especially when you talk about the salary and the hourly
Right.
package, and just different things
Right.
that we don't take consideration when we're in because we don't really see it, right? Whether it be Medicare, or whether it be your insurances or different things. It's not broke down. When you start having a
Right.
civilian job and you start looking at the things that they're taking out and how you have to pay into this company's thing or whatever the case may be, it is
Right.
significantly different because they could pay you whatever the dollar amount that you were making in the military, but you're also going to get things taken out that you weren't really noticing when you were in the military. So the things that you provide are very, very valuable. So I love it. So just keep sharing it so I can keep
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. Because the big thing of it is the pay scale is DFAS. Doesn't matter. It didn't say it's Army pay scale, Marine pay scale, Navy pay scale, Coast Guard. It's Department of Defense, right? Defense Finance Accounting Services. And so those transition problems are not unique to Eric Horton in the Army. It's also unique to a lieutenant colonel that's retiring from the Coast Guard or a Marine that's coming from Camp Lejeune. It's just not unique to the person. It's everybody can take value in this. So, yeah, absolutely.
no doubt. So let me ask you this. You had an opportunity. I mean, well, you do have an opportunity. I'm going to give you an opportunity right now. You have an opportunity to tell someone, I know it's very hard to do one, but what is a transition tip that you can give? What is one of the pieces of advice that you could give that maybe hit you on the head on your way out the door, just one that you've seen frequently that people keep tripping and stumbling over? What could you give them? What advice would you give them to be successful
So
in that?
you're exactly right. I'm glad that you had given me that opportunity because I actually thought about this for a while, right? And it came down to one thing that's kind of unanimous is people will turn away a low entry level position, but without looking at the vision of where can I get promoted in a short period of time. And the example I'm going to give you is a guy will turn away a supervisor position that could be a command sergeant major or a master sergeant. It's top notch, right? He'll turn away a supervisor position because he has to have a higher level of responsibility. But if he took that higher level of responsibility and there's no more room for growth, did he really win? And so a lot of times guys will turn away an entry level position without seeing that there's a clear path of promotion that while you were in the military, you can't, based off of the new promotion, time and grade, time and service, it takes you almost, 12 years to go from, if your time and grade, time and service from an E6, from the time that you could potentially make sergeant major is almost 14 years, right? And so 14 years, do you know how much that pay raise is? There's from an E6 at 6 years to a sergeant major at 20. The pay raise between the two of them is only about $20,000, a little bit more than that.
Wow.
So if it took you 14 years to take a $20,000 pay raise, why will you turn down an entry level position that could potentially get you a $40,000 or $50,000 pay raise in 5 or 6 years?
Right.
So that's the big piece that I always say is don't be so quick to turn down an entry level position because it was good enough for you to wait 14 years for the hope of getting promoted to a sergeant major.
Mm.
But the reality of it is in the civilian sector, your skill sets are going to promote you far faster than it ever did in the military, and your pay raise is going to be far greater than it ever was in the military. So look at it from that perspective. What was good for you while you were in uniform, it can be twice as fast and twice as much in the civilian sector. So don't be so quick to turn it away.
That's great advice, and it's really interesting because I believe this is my belief, opinion, or whatever you want to call it. There's a little bit of entitlement piece. I gave this, I should have that. I mean, it goes back and forth. I mean, there's some really humble folks that are in the military that don't that just go and do that, and then they become very successful. Uh, I got to be honest, man. I just heard stories after story after story of people that have taken entry level jobs, and within a very short time, whatever that short time is, whether it is 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, that time they've skyrocketed to better places because the work ethic is different. Some people just don't want to climb the ladder again, and that's a problem. So why is it
Right.
that you want to go 20 years or 25 years in service, think you deserve to be up here when competing against people that have been in the same industry for 20, 25 years,
You're
so
right.
you don't feel like climbing the ladder. I mean,
Well,
again, that's some expectation management, right?
and I'm gonna flip the script on that, right? So let's look at it from a different perspective.
Mhm.
Let's say a guy is a CEO of a company. He's 20 years in, he's a CEO, he's successfully climbed that ladder, and he says, "Hey, Eric, you know what, man? I've succeeded at this. I want to take the suit off. I want to go become a battalion commander or battalion command sergeant major." And I always ask, can he do it? And 9 times out of 10, every battalion commander, battalion sergeant major will tell me to go pound sand. It ain't going to happen. And
Yep.
so I always say to them is, why can't it happen? And then they'll say, well, he doesn't understand the culture, everything, this and that. And I say, why do you think that you can do the same that you just told him he can't do when we don't know their culture and we don't know that whole side of the fence either. So would it make more sense to do some time and learn and grow, or
Absolutely.
does it make more sense to go ahead and start at the top and fail and leave?
Yep.
And because every time a soldier does that and leaves the company, guess what? That company doesn't say Joe Snow, failed. They say that the last time we hired a veteran, this is what happened.
Yeah,
And
and that's it,
so
and
instead of
that's the bad part. It really is. That's
it
I've
is
heard that on several occasions. They put a lot of money and time and effort into the veteran. And it's we're not all created the same, that's
right,
the other very difficult is that what we see when we're in the military, right? We saw good, great,
right,
poor, horrible, soldiers, sailors, and marines. They exist. They still exist on the other side of the wall too, right? So when you come out, they're still good, bad, poor. Anyway,
yeah,
so it's just an interesting situation. So I've always found those conversations to be great. I mean, we need to have them. I mean,
we
put out
do.
expectations and create those expectations. So, you know, one thing that I would tell you is, just in my opinion, again, as people do transition into those, I think learning the role, learning the culture, that's a positive thing because, again, you hit on it earlier today, even just at your job, as you looked at, or when you had the sergeant major that was there for 28 days, you had the deputy chief four that was there for a week. It might not be what you expected. You don't know what you don't know until you get there, and you got to be able to feel it. So to take what you take, take what's
Right,
off everything. Don't get me wrong, but be thoughtful and actually open to change some things. So when you get in there, you can make a determination whether you want to stay forever or,
right,
but be thoughtful. You just don't waste your time and other people's time.
absolutely.
Outstanding. So I'm gonna ask you a question that I ask everybody, right? This is one of my the favorite thing is one of those you can't make this stuff up stories. 'Cause I enjoy those the comical things because in the military we do things that not everybody does. We when I used to tell my friends things that we did because I had some really close friends. When I told friends things that we did, they didn't believe me. They were like, "You gotta be kidding me! How did you not die? How did you not go to jail? How did you not do this or whatever?" So I want to hear a story from Eric Horton about one of those you can't make this stuff up stories about when you were in uniform. What was one of those things?
Well, and when you talked to me about that, there's been multiple, but one of them that kind of stuck out was as we were getting, before we had the Humvees, you had the high back cut V's, you had a lot of older vehicles, right? So we were getting fielded Humvees, and this is early '90s, and I was sent down to go pick up and do a line haul into Fort Sill from the railhead, and so we ended up coming back with Humvees. And so at the time, the motor pool sergeant said the motor pool was locked up, right? And so I was like, well, what do you want me to do this? He's like, I don't know, go park it somewhere. And so I drove it to the house and parked it in the driveway. And it wasn't until, my parents had came home and then, I called back and talked to my platoon sergeant and I was like, hey, I couldn't, there was nowhere to park it at the motor pool. Everything was locked up. And he's, I don't know what to do. So the motor NCO said, just go ahead and take it home and park it and bring it back in the morning. So, here I drove a Humvee all the way to the house, parked it at my parents' house. And my dad, comes out there and is like, what the hell are you doing? Bringing out, what is this? What is, and then the next day, when I went back, it was just like nothing happened. But if I would have done something like that today, man, like
Oh man,
it would have just, it would have made 10 o'clock news, man.
we've seen some of those 10 o'clock news lately. Anyway, that's awesome, man. Hey, so I, I find those things awesome. But especially when you're a senior guy and you do stuff like that, it makes me laugh. I'm like, Jesus, but wait, how many times do we do those things? We don't know what you're doing. No one. It's almost funny to me that they expected you to know better.
Yeah.
We just do stuff. They're like, okay, Roger Sergeant, yes, Sergeant, I'm going to do it. You're going to be. If you're not going to go ask 2 or 3, 4 times, you look like a dummy. They're like, this guy's a rock. I'm just going to take it home. Oh, I have to take it home.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. I
awesome.
didn't think twice about it, man. So I think it was I just pinned D3 too. So that was even when you could drive without having a TC and, no Kevlar. Like, I'm just, yeah, it was crazy, man. It was a different time.
That's awesome, man. I love it. It actually makes me think back to the times when I was a kid doing similar things. Not taking them home, but similar. So Before we wrap it up, man, I really want to ask one. I want to thank you for coming because I know that taking your time. I appreciate you greatly. I know you got a job and you got a lot of responsibilities, so it's nice for you to take some time out and share some information with us. The one thing I want to ask you is for people that want to follow you. I know I made mention of LinkedIn earlier today. They can look you up on Eric Horton and transition hacker. If you find that it's going to be there, you're the only one that has it on there, which is awesome. But where
Right.
else can people follow you? Where do you put stuff that people can go to see what you're doing, where you're at, and maybe reach out to you if they have questions because you do have a buttload of information that would benefit them.
I do, and the only primary source right now is my LinkedIn feed. But Workforce Essentials, if anybody wants to reach out, it doesn't matter. The good thing about what LinkedIn has done for me is whether it could be, I've had people reach out from South Carolina to make a connection to help somebody that's in Wichita, Kansas, or I've had New Jersey. So if anybody wants to email me and send me a resume, send it to ehorton@workforceessentials.com. I'll do whatever I can to help you out. And definitely, if you're transitioning out of the military, no matter what branch of service, and you want to come back to Tennessee or Kentucky, send me an email, man, and we can try to make it happen as much as possible.
Outstanding. So what I'm going to do when we're done with this, I'm going to wrap it up and I'll put it up. I'll put your email address on the comments below this feed and share it out to different Facebook groups that I have. I have this Facebook group. I have a Facebook page, and then I'll send it out to a couple other transitioning Facebook groups that are out there as well. I'll share it on LinkedIn tomorrow morning. But anyhow,
Absolutely.
hey, before I head out, I'm going to give you an opportunity to say anything else you want to say. But I just truly want to thank you for coming out here.
Well, I want a good thing for me to really say is no matter the transition, it is not specific and unique to the individual. Everybody's going to go through it, and believe it or not, those stories are all the same. It's just a different person, right? And so we are all. I have never felt more camaraderie until I've transitioned with a group of people. I mean, everybody genuinely wants to help. And so it would be a waste if nobody leans in on that network in LinkedIn or Facebook and try to taps in and utilize that. There's more people here trying to help than try to hurt. And that is the biggest thing that I don't think people in the military really understand. That network piece is so paramount to your success because there's so much. Well, I have yet to see any senior NCO or senior officer say, "I'm not going to give you any advice on how it went," because we're taught, from privates or young officers all the way up until seniors to say that we're supposed to take care of soldiers, right? And that my mantra didn't say, when we used a code and said, "I will never leave a fallen comrade behind." To me, that does not mean whether just on the battlefield in ACU or UCP, right? That means whether it's a suit in downtown Clarksville, like we are here to take care of each other. And so, man, reach out and what we're doing is not unique. So.
Love your passion, man. I do. I truly, I agree. I used to work as a kind of not a real career counselor. We didn't have one, so I kind of was voluntold, but I enjoyed it. I got the opportunity to see every soldier, and it's something I like to do. But the idea of the career counselor is not just to help you in, right? It's to help you out. Either way you look at
Right.
it, we're here to do for each other, and I think it's awesome. Your passion, your heart, your drive, everything you're doing, I'm on your side. So I will be your biggest fan, your biggest advocate the whole time you're doing this stuff. So just keep pushing your stuff to me, and I'll make sure everybody hears your name, your voice, because man, you're doing great things around, and I'm just really thankful for you and for taking your time with us today.
Man, I appreciate what you're doing, brother, because this is another space that I'm not into that you are. And you reached out, and it's just another way to try to show that people are doing good, and we're all in this space together to help. And I appreciate your support, man. I couldn't do this without you.
Outstanding. I appreciate you. All right, man. Well, listen, for you, I'll talk to you soon. And stay put. Don't leave you. I'll end the show and I'll have a conversation afterwards. But let me wrap it up with all the folks out there. Hey, Curtis O'Neill. Hey, good to see you, brother. Curtis Ward. Thanks, Jeremy. Oh my goodness, I can't believe you're around. Way to come in. I appreciate you guys stopping in. Share the video. Let people hear it. Eric Horton's information is no doubt paramount to the success of the transition. But more importantly, watching it from here, I mean, I've seen him for the past year and just the stuff that he's done. He's going to do more great things. And the good thing is, the conversations still go. There's more information being flown regularly. It's flowing, and there's so much out there to take for free. You don't have to pay for all this stuff. It's free
Right.
information, so get it while you can, and don't raise your nose and say, "I got it. I don't care. I got this." You'll come back later when you need it. So just take it as it goes. Share
Yeah.
with someone that might need it. Hey, we're here Thank you so much for coming by. Hey, everybody, I will check you out next time on the other side.